Can you imagine a healthy planet? Sorry about that, but we do have to face the music. The planet is not healthy right now, and it's getting worse. You've heard it all before, but have you listened closely? Truth be told, your mother is sick, and unless you do something about it, the future does not look bright.
Due to acid rain, 14,000 Canadian lakes are strongly acidified, and 150,000 more in eastern Canada are suffering biological damage. There is mounting concern about the effects of acid rain on forests and crops. The human health costs are staggering, and the expected impact on fish and wildlife.
With 5 of this century's hottest summers taking place during the 1980s, the scientific community is urging fast action to combat the so-called greenhouse effect. At the center of most plans is a drastic reduction in the use of fossil fuels and increased energy efficiency measures.
It now appears that the ozone layer has a second hole, this time over the Arctic. Last year, a hole almost the size of the United States was discovered over Antarctica. The ozone layer protects us from the harmful ultraviolet rays of the sun, and thinner ozone is expected to result in increased incidence of skin cancer and eye cataracts.
Canadians would probably be shocked to learn that smog has begun to appear in the Arctic. The smog is comprised of airborne pollution which sometimes travels thousands of miles. As well, PCBs and DDT are being found throughout the Arctic food chain. Bears, fish, berries.
Okay, that's the bad news. To regain our health, both as a society and as a planet, we need to recognize and accept the bad news. Then we can look for solutions. There are encouraging signs that people are taking environmental concerns to heart. Recycling is on everybody's lips, and the styrofoam cup is going the way of the dinosaur. The rhetoric for energy efficiency is there too, and increasingly so are the dollars. It's becoming conventional wisdom that we must shift to renewable energy sources like wind and solar for both economic and ecological reasons. But at the center of almost every environmental problem, and often ignored, is the automobile. If not ignored, it's accommodated. Many environmentalists argue for alternative fuels or tailpipe contraptions, but each of the alternative fuels has its own problems, and we haven't solved smog with catalytic converters. Far from it. How did we get into this mess to begin with? Our love affair with the car may have seemed like a good idea in high school, when all those hormones were running amok. Sexy, powerful car ads made Corvettes and Porsches seem like heaven on earth. Yet somehow, even with $5 billion being spent annually on advertising, the automobile companies forgot to tell us a few things. Did you know that society's sacred cow, the car, is the greatest source of air pollution in our cities? Did you know that it took 50 years to phase out leaded gasoline, even though scientists knew that it was poisoning tens of millions of urban kids? Did you know that 100 million lead-acid batteries from cars are thoughtlessly discarded each year? And Valdez, an environmental tragedy. But hold the crocodile tears. It wasn't Hazelwood's driving that was at fault. It was ours. To fuel our car addiction, we're looking for oil in sensitive ecological areas. The more we drive, the more oil spills. In Canada every year, there is the equivalent of 8 Valdez spills from do-it-yourselfers who dump used oil into the sewers or into the garbage. Now that's a tragedy. Global warming? 1 ton of carbon per car per year. Smog? Mainly from cars. Smog causes short-term breathing difficulty and long-term lung damage in lower concentrations than previously believed. A recent study by the American Lung Association, not your typical radical environmental group, suggests that each year 120,000 premature deaths are related to motor vehicle emissions. Add to that 250,000 killed each year in motor vehicle accidents, and it's motor mayhem. 40% of the world's nitric acid, cars. 70% of the world's man-made carbon monoxide, cars. 10% of the CFCs shredding the ozone layer, benzene, particulates, asbestos, cars, cars, cars. Motor vehicles account for more of the world's air pollution than any other human activity. Besides consuming the planet, cars consume our time. Car owners spend, on average, 4 out of 16 waking hours on the road or gathering resources to pay for the vehicle. Paying for parking, gasoline, tolls, insurance, maintenance, tickets. It can easily cost $6,000 each year. Over a lifetime, a person will spend as much for their car as they will for their home. There are all sorts of hidden subsidies for the car as well, from ambulance costs to healthcare costs, from interstate highways to police. According to the World Watch Institute, if car drivers paid the real costs, they'd be paying an extra $3,000 each year. We're careening towards a dead end for ourselves, for our communities, and for the planet. How did it all happen? Well, not by accident, that's for sure. The oil and auto companies realized that to sell cars, they would have to create a new need for them. In the early decades of this century, people got around by healthier means, walking, cycling, by horse, and by trolley and tramway. People liked the mass transit of the day. It was quick and comfortable. Then in the 1930s and 40s, General Motors, Standard Oil, and Firestone Tires conspired and bought up the transit systems in 45 North American cities. They raised the fares, reduced service, and ran them into the ground. Los Angeles was built around an efficient, clean electric tramway system. After it was destroyed, people had little choice but to drive. Since then, planners, by and large, have been designing cities for cars, not for people. Freeways aren't free, and they just lead to more gridlock and more pollution. You can't put a Band-Aid on inappropriate transportation.